Thank you very much for sending me a note about your brother Fernando.
Well, thank you. Well, yes, I'm very interested in finding my brother, Preston. Oh, I've been waiting so many years, my God. Maybe one of these days I'll be able to find his remains and send him back to El Paso.
Wow.
Bury him here, hopefully.
Now, you tell me, I mean, I want to learn about Fernando, but you mentioned that he's been missing. How long has he been missing? When did he go missing?
Well, actually, they got him down for December the 2nd of 1950. That was the battle up in North Korea in the reservoir.
The Chosin Reservoir.
Yes, and that's the official, I would say, documented date, December the 2nd, 1950.
Oh boy. How did your family first find out that Fernando was missing?
Actually, they sent my mother a telegram, but I do not have the telegram. I don't know what she did with it. No, she passed away many years ago.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the way I think they notified her.
Now, you said in the note you sent to me that your brother was 17 when he went into the Army.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. How old were you when your brother went?
Well, I was just 13, almost 14.
So just a few years younger. And what year did Fernando go into the Army?
He went into 1948.
1948. So then when he went missing, he was 19.
19, exactly.
Oh, and so you were 16.
I was 16, that's correct, in high school.
What was that like when the telegram came to your house?
Well, I think, if I remember correctly, my mother, she took it bad. She just really suffered. We had two rooms. We lived in a presidio. That's a vivienda. It's a long. It looks like I would say a train, and all these rooms were one after the other. So we had number 2 and number 3. Yeah. And I think she went into one of these rooms in the bed, and she just cried her heart out. That's why I remember her crying and laying in bed.
Oh gosh. And I imagine for a long time she kept hoping that he would come home.
Oh yes. She prayed. I'm Catholic. She was Catholic, and there's a saint, Saint Lawrence, which is Lorenzo in Spanish.
Yeah.
And and then in Mexico, there's a church, San Lorenzo, and she would go every year. And in San Lorenzo, they have these Indians. They call them some kind of Indian. Yeah. And they actually dance in line. And every year, she would go and get in line and dance with the Indians on behalf of my brother.
Oh boy! Did your mom, did she ever? I don't know what the right word is. Did she ever just finally conclude? Fernando's not coming back, or do you think to the very end of her life she always hoped that he would show up one day at the door?
Well, that's a good question because she never gave hope, Preston.
Yeah.
And even at their deathbed, he'd look at me and said, "Whatever happened to your brother?"
Yeah.
And she died not knowing. And so I guess she knows now that she's up there with him.
Yeah.
But she never gave hope, that's for sure.
Yeah, gosh, whatever happened to your son?
Yeah, what happened to her son? And it's been not to find closure, not to find out what happened to him. That's the whole, I would say, a ton of bricks and laying in your head. It's just, you want to find out.
Do you still feel that way all these years later?
I sure do, because those memories that I have of him. In other words, he was my older brother, right? And you look up to your older brother, and he was it, And so, you never forget your family, your brother, and and I was a kid when he left, so
Yeah.
well, I was 16, you know. But then
And-
I haven't forgot him. As a matter of fact, right now I kind of get a chill in my spine or whatever it is, just thinking of him, you know.
Yeah.
I guess the blood is thicker than water. I don't know
Well,
what it is.
yeah, well, I mean, you say in the note you sent to me, you say that you idolized your brother Fernando, and so just
Oh,
tell,
yeah.
just tell me a little about him. What was he like?
Well, here again, let me start by school. We were not very smart, I'll tell you. He had to drop out of school. His reading and writing. So was my sister. She was, and I'm just hanging in there. And so he dropped out of school because he couldn't make the grades. My sister, this is funny about my sister. She had to drop out of gymnasium, the gym class, because she couldn't do the somersaults. Crazy, isn't it? And I barely made it to high school.
Yeah.
And but then we don't have any degrees of any kind.
Mm-hmm. But you still admired him. Is that because he was a really hard worker and just a really good guy? I mean, how would you describe him as a person?
Well, I would think there, and I think I wrote it there in the description. He had a really good personality. He loved his friends. He loved his girlfriend, and he was a real good dancer. He loved his music. And as I wrote on that description, we had the street dances. And by golly, he and Suki, his girlfriend, I mean, they danced a storm. So I could see that his dancing ability was better than shoveling cement, that's for sure.
Yeah, yeah. Now you say that, you say that he had a job. He was working construction, and he would come home. He would come home covered with dust, and then he went into the army.
Yeah, that's right. And they say, Mom, you know what? This is, I can't. He was thin, you know. I think he weighed 125 pounds, something like that.
Wow.
I can just picture him. But I used to see him all full of dust. Picture him sticking up the cement truck, the cement wheelbarrow.
Wow.
My God, and he said, this is for the birds.
Now,
So,
did you ever see him? I'm sorry. Did you ever see him in his army uniform?
oh, yes. As a matter of fact, he did come to the furlough.
Yeah.
And he came to visit my mother and me, and he looked sharp and what have you.
Now, you said Fernando went into the army in 1948, and then, of course, the Korean War starts in 1950.
Right.
Do you remember, I mean, when, 'cause young people aren't usually paying a whole lot of attention to the news, but you probably heard about the war, and did you think, oh, wow, we've got another war now in Korea, I wonder if Fernando's going to go?
Well, I don't think so, because here's what happened. He also, there was a friend of him, Jesus Ramirez, and he said, Chuy, I'm going to the army. You want to come with me? And Don Chuy said, yeah, I'll go with you. Both of them went to the army not knowing what was happening in Korea or anywhere else. And they joined, and they partied, and they met friends from San Antonio. It was all one big party. Till the war broke out, and I said, so where am I going? You're going to Korea? I said, where? What? And I think that was eye-opener for my brother anyway.
Do you know when Fernando, when he got to Korea? Did he go in with MacArthur at Incheon, or do you know when he actually got to Korea?
Do you know about the Incheon landing and MacArthur? And what he was, because the Marines went in there in Incheon, and then the Army went in after the 32nd Infantry.
Yeah.
And then they went all the way to Seoul, and then they came back, or say they reversed themselves, and they went around Korea up into the, I'll say the west side. And then they Wonsong, and from there they started marching up to the Chosin Reservoir.
Yeah, and
he was in all of that, in that battle. I just what kind of activity he was doing, I don't know, but I knew that I think it was the Marines were there, and then they came in right after the Marines, and then they They went all the way up to, like I said, they came back and they went up north,
Yeah.
up into the Yellow,
Yeah.
and that's then the big counterattack by the Chinese.
The Chinese.
They came down, and that's where he lost his life, I
Oh
suppose.
gosh, and temperatures of -20, and yeah. Now, do you know anything about the circumstances? Do you know anything about roughly what Fernando? I mean, do you know anything about like the day before or the day of that he went missing, or do you have any detail about that at all?
I don't have any information on that.
Wow.
I've read, I think, most of it. A few people that came back from that terrible disaster and that winter, I think 30 minus.
Oh gosh.
Minus 30
Yeah.
below zero.
Yeah.
But here's what I've read, and I've got a good book on that. And I think what happened is that they're so cold, and they would say, "Hey, stay awake." The Chinese, they would fall asleep. And then when the Chinese came there, I don't know, I just have this feeling, or maybe it's just a feeling, I don't know.
Yeah.
They got shot while they were asleep.
And then
I have no proof of that, but I've
Yeah.
read that this really did happen. There's another episode about the Chosin, is that the Chinese, they were coming down on them, and then they asked for air assistance from the Air Force.
Yeah.
And they came down, and one of the guys made a big mistake, and he dropped his napalm bomb on the Americans and on the Chinese. And some of the guys, the Americans, got burned,
Oh god.
And I don't have any information on that other than what I read in the book,
Yeah. So
who died? It's just terrible.
yeah. So all you're able to do is they gave you the date December 2nd, so you're able to just kind of look up what unit was he with?
Oh, well, it was just, okay, well, he was 32nd Infantry Division, the 32nd. Infantry, well, the 7th Division and the 32nd Infantry.
32nd Infantry.
7th Division, 32nd, Company A.
Company A, yeah. So, we can roughly find out where that company was on that day.
Yeah.
But we don't have any more detail than that about Fernando's case.
Well, I was in limbo, I would say, because this guy came from El Paso, and he was, I think he was one of his friends. I'm not sure, but this is what I heard from him. I think, except I can't remember all of that. But he said, "Ben, I think your brother," that's what I think, got captured. He was put on these trucks, and they were coming, and they were retreating, and the Chinese came down and they burned the trucks. And things like that you don't want to hear. But that could have happened, Preston. I really don't know.
So, yeah, and so I'm hearing you say, well, maybe he was asleep, and when the Chinese came and got him then, or maybe he was accidentally hit by American napalm, or maybe he was captured.
And burned in a truck.
Yeah,
all these terrible things.
And that's part of that's one of the things that makes this so hard, right? Just not knowing.
Oh, that's right, exactly. Here it is, 70 years later, and I don't have any answers.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
And of course, what makes it additionally hard is that if there are remains that can be found, they're in North Korea.
Oh God, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, there's another problem there. That North Koreans, they're a bunch of assholes. I mean, use that word. I mean, all they want is money, and they do whatever they want to. They got us by the balls, And for us to go out there and go to the Chosin and excavate and look for those remains, I don't think it's going to happen for a while. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Do you when For example, when President Trump and Kim Jong-un were having their meetings, I mean, were you paying attention to that, kind of hoping that something would come from that?
Yes, I was paying attention. Yes.
Yeah.
Now, and I cannot make any sense out of it because nothing transpired. He didn't. Right after that, they did return some remains about 20 boxes.
That's right.
Yes. And in other words, that meeting between Trump and whatever the guy,
Kim Jong-un,
yeah, and that guy, I think it what resulted was the exchange of those remains.
Yeah.
Which is good. I hope that he's in there, or was part of that. Yes, part of that. I don't know.
Gosh, and that's what I was going to ask. I mean, when the news broke that after President Trump and Kim Jong-un, they met in Singapore, and one of the things they agreed to had to do with war remains, and then the remains did come to the States, and so when you heard that news, you must have hoped, well, maybe Fernando's in there.
Yes, and I said, well, like I said, President, I've never given up hope.
Yeah.
Hopefully these remains that they exchange is part of that. But then what I've heard is that they call it commingle.
Right.
In other words, these people, the different remains are Koreans. They're they were from Europe. Those guys that came from Europe, and American and Chinese.
Yeah.
I know. Yeah. It's a big job to decipher who's there and what's not.
Just listening to you, I feel, I mean, I obviously can't feel what you feel, but I mean, I feel a sense of burden. It's just, if you lose a brother in war, that's horrible. But losing a brother in war, but not knowing how, not knowing what happened, not knowing where is he, that is that just something that's just always there? It just never goes away. It's always there. Is that kind of how it is? Yeah.
I tell my kids, I probably won't find out in my lifetime because I'm 86 or almost 87,
Wow.
And he might die. Hopefully I talked to my oldest daughter, said, Laura, I want you to, keep looking, keep waiting, and who knows?
No, that's
so many,
right.
Excuse me, but there's so many of this missing in action, MIAs, and oh my God, there's 80,000 of them.
Yeah, that's right. World War II, Korea, Vietnam, and then in North Korea itself, I think about 5,000 still.
Yes, so there's so many of them.
Now, you mentioned that you have all of Fernando's letters.
Yes, I do. And here's what I did. He didn't have much. I think he got out at the 5th grade or what have you. Yeah. And the fun part of it is I read his letters when he started. His spelling like mine in his sentences and what have you. And the more he wrote, the better he got at it. But then the last letter I had over. I still have it, but you know what? I should go back and read the last letter.
Did he write in Spanish or English?
Oh, it's English, because both are English and Spanish.
Yeah.
They're not the best. We call it Spanglish.
Right, yeah. Did in his letters, did he ever mention anything about combat? Did he ever talk about combat?
No, he never did. Yeah. And I think what he did is that he, like I said on my letter there, and I said, Mom, I'm okay. I guess he was into the fighting, probably in Incheon or something. Yeah. But he didn't want to reveal his whereabouts or how many people he killed or anything like that.
Well, I think that's common. I think that's pretty common when soldiers are writing to their parents. Right. A lot of times they're not going to really talk about what's going on. If you could say something to Fernando right now, what would you say?
Oh, to my brother. Oh, wow, so many things have happened. Hey, okay, first of all, his name was Chicho. I don't know where he got that. Chicho. Hey, Chicho. Oh, here's what happened. All right, your mother's gone. Your sister's gone. I'm married. I've got 5 kids. Those 5 kids have more kids and grandkids, and those kids have great-grandkids. But anyway, I'm the last one of the Mohicans here now, on the Oriolas, other than my family.
Yeah.
And a lot of things have gone, and going by the wayside. And I'm still trying to find out what happened to you. And God, one day God will reveal this to me about you, Chicho.
Yeah. Wow.
That's what I would say.